when it comes to people operating businesses, and again, our audience, hopefully 50 to 200 seats, what do they need to be doing off the back of what changes off the back of the Privacy Act changes in late 2024?
Yeah, the Privacy Act now includes small business. So it didn't before. It does include small business now.
Okay.
And I think the threshold has dropped to about $3 million a year in turnover.
Right. So key thing first off is the businesses covered under the legislation has increased, small and medium-sized businesses, and not just staff count, but revenue count.
But revenue count as well. That's exactly right. There are fines, and the fines, this is another thing, the fines are much more significant now than what they ever were before, because they're now based on revenue. They're not based on we'll just, hit you with a $10,000 fine here or there. Yeah, that's exactly right. They're now based on percentages of operating revenue, which is why someone like Qantas is potentially staring down the barrel of a $6 billion fine for failure to protect people's personal information. There's a real reason to sit up and pay attention to this. Let's think about, if you have to do just one thing, what's the thing that you should pick up and do first? And my advice is always a risk and value framework. That's where you start. Yeah. Okay. Start by understanding a risk and value framework for your information. Start by understanding what you've got, where it is, and what the risk and value is to your organisation, because from there you can start to make some decisions from a technical perspective, from a policy perspective, from a user training and engagement perspective, things like that. You can actually start to make some decisions when you know what your information landscape actually looks like.
The law now explicitly requires technical and organizational measures to protect personal information. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely.
What's changed there, and what does that mean in practical terms for a business now?
Okay, first thing that we need to look at is we need I would call a technical vulnerability assessment. So it's not even a technology thing, but it's a thing about, let's look at the systems where our information is stored, SharePoint and potentially others, and assess whether or not they're appropriate. Do we have the right things in place to ensure that information that should be locked down that we don't have any gaps? Do we need to do any kind of things like penetration testing, for example, like how easy is it to get in?
Oversharing.
Oh my goodness, oversharing. We need to look at things like data encryption. Yeah. When we're moving data around, even within an M365 environment, or when we're potentially bringing in content from other systems, when we're migrating into a central repository. And that's the other thing. Having a central repository means you only have one place to manage.
The data that businesses can keep now under the Act has to have purpose, right? You can't keep more than you need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they're also, you also have to tell people how long you're keeping their information for. Right. And not only that, you then have to get rid of it when you say you're going to. Yeah. So it's not a case of, I'll just keep this forever because it might be useful in 10 years' time, or I don't want to go through a life cycle process for it, or things like that. You are legally obliged to remove and completely obliterate is the insider term, so that it cannot be recreated. And that's even things from like backups. You can't keep it in a backup. It has to be gone. There can be no way.
There's some work to be done here.
There are enhanced obligations around notifying the market or users when there is a breach, right?
Yeah.
Which means you have to actually know that one's happened. So I assume that is important in some way, shape or form for businesses as well. What does that actually look like then in practice? What do they have to do to ensure they can notify and understand the scope of a breach?
They need to, first of all, have identified that there was a breach. Then they need to have notified both the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, the OAIC, which is the governing body in this space. So they need to put a notification in there. Under this Act, the OAIC has been granted new powers with infringement and compliance notices as well. So they now have more power to enforce some of this stuff. But most importantly, they also need to notify people who were impacted by this breach. Like, as I said before, we're now talking about much broader scope for this Act, so it applies to everybody. Okay. And it's not a case of, I'll worry about this if it happens. It's not if anymore.
Yeah.
It's when.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
You need a plan.
Bye.